Hey everybody, Direct Line Media, Dave Shimoleski here. Another episode of Behind the Brand. So thanks so much for joining us. We're at episode 23, I believe. Last episode was with Flacco, so hope you were able to check that one out. Today we have Diana Pagano. Thank you so much for joining us here at Behind the Brand. We met not too long ago at the Latinos event in Hartford, and I thought you'd be a terrific guest on my show, and so thank you so much for coming out. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is awesome.
So let's start there. Let's start at the forgive me, I forget the name.
It's okay. Latinos Empower Symposium.
Exactly.
In Hartford,
thank you.
Connecticut.
Tell me how you got with them, and what were you doing there? What was your part of that?
Yes, Marilyn, the founder of this amazing event, was her 19th one doing it 19 years in a row, which is amazing. I'm not from Connecticut, but she reached out to me. I guess somebody on her team, I believe, told her about me. And she reached out to me earlier in the year and said, I think you'd be a great speaker for this event and hearing more about your story. And I said, it'd be an honor to, when you get around a group of women in general, but when it's Latina women, which is my background's where I come from, was just an honor to be a part of that.
Awesome. What do you do? So you're a motivational speaker. Is that?
It's interesting that you say motivational speaker.
Well,
because
that's what everybody calls them, right?
Yes,
so
it's all yes, and I always say, inspirational speaker is what I like because it's easy to motivate, right? Like you can motivate a crowd. It's not always easy to inspire a crowd to take action on something that they want to do in their lives. But yes, I'm an inspirational speaker. I'm an author. I'm also involved in a couple businesses, but my husband and I run a language services company in Glastonbury, Connecticut. So really busy with that. And obviously I do events as well, and I'm a speaker as well.
How did you get involved? What made you decide that inspirational speaking was something you needed to do?
So honestly, that journey is quite wild, and it probably goes back to 2008, to be honest with you, when I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was a single mother at the time, and I was selling real estate. I went into real estate in 2003. My daughter was a year and a half old. Actually, I still remember. Actually, it was not even a year and a half. She was a year old. And on July 26th, I passed my real estate exam. So to fast forward that, though, because that didn't happen in 2008, I started to really be obsessed with human behavior, my own behavior, of why are some people so successful and other people do struggle. And I was so obsessed by that whole discovery that I went into and kind of self-taught myself and went into these books about different things, quantum physics, and I realized, oh my gosh, you do have a choice. You have an option. You don't have to settle for things in your life. And I was a single mother running around with her head cut off, and it was years of doing it the wrong way that I finally said, there has to be a better way. And it was the minute I asked that question that things started to change. And of course, nothing happened overnight. But after that, I said, how many others are out there that don't know that they're right, that they're having pity parties for themselves, but that you don't have to. Yes, life could be hard. There could be circumstances that suck, but that doesn't have to be your reality forever. You can change that around. The controlling of our thoughts really does affect the kind of life that you lead based on your fundamental beliefs. And so I started to uncover all these things that I was actually believing most of my young adult life, that I said there has to be something different. And so that's where I actually had once upon a time divinedestiny.com. I own the website. It's kind of funny now. I don't own it now. I don't know what it is, but that's where really my journey came from, Dave. That's where it started. And then, of course, I got remarried. I have 2 additional kids. I came to Connecticut, pursued my real estate license here because that's all I knew at the time was real estate. And that thing just kept burning inside me that, I wanted to make a difference and contribute in a way that only I knew how. And it was based on my experience. There's nothing I will talk about. There's nothing I ever teach that I haven't gone through myself, right? Or that I haven't done one-on-one coaching and seeing the transformation that it actually has had. I don't do one-on-one coaching anymore, but I did. And that's where it started happening. So I decided to do a 12-day course. It was called Real Estate by Design for realtors that have been in the business longer than me, sometimes even less than me, rookie agents that were trying to get in. And it was all, Dave, on all the psychology behind the sale. And it was all the mindset stuff, right? You don't get that. And there was great students in the classroom that went through Brian Buffini and Floyd Wickman. And so, and they said, wow, this class is different because it's all just going to the foundation of how and who we are. That it's not about here's a roadmap, here's how to do amazing things in your life, here's how to sell more. None of that matters if you don't have the foundation, and that's this right here, before anything that you do, right? And that's really where it started. And then I joined my husband. He recruited me at the time to work for ITI and build a sales team from nothing because that's my background was is sales. And that's where Make Things Happen actually was part of my mojo, if you will. In one of the staff meetings with our team, I put in this slide. Till this day, it still exists, and it says, at the end, I put it's like a picture of a sticky note that says "Make Things Happen," and I wrote on the very top, "Let's continue to make things happen." And that's where that kind of became a thing. And I'm like, wow, that's it. It's to make things happen. I started to do speaking engagements. I started to do other trainings, and it just took off from there.
So I want to back up a little bit. A lot of questions.
Sure. A lot to unpack there.
Divine, what was it?
DivineDestiny.com.
DivineDestiny.com. So is that similar
now
to what you're doing now? Is it
Yes.
completely different?
Well, it was all, the whole idea was, how do I live my divine destiny? Like, we all have a destiny. I believe that,
gotcha.
to live this life and to live this world. But it's also, how do you create that divine destiny by design?
Do you find you hear that thing like you get out of your own way, right? You can't succeed. Is that mostly what you focus on? Like, is it mostly people getting in their own way that they can't reach their goals? Is that what you find? Is that
I do find that it's all the what you can control, right? I'm not here to teach you how to control others, how to control circumstances that might happen. It's about you. You can choose how you show up, right? So yes, to answer your question, it's more about you and what you can control and how just a mind shift. It's the smallest little thing that does amazing results, to be honest. And people don't realize, and I know from just coaching people, they don't realize often, I was one of them, that, it's all in your perspective. If you see a situation that is awful, this pandemic is one idea, and you feel that I'm doomed, there's no way I can be successful, then that's the reality. And it's more than just positive thinking, because positive thinking is this overrated thing that you just have to think positive. And I'm sorry, we have 66,000 thoughts a minute, whatever it is. It's impossible to never have a negative thought, but it's how you're driving that, what you're doing after you have that negative thought, that really impacts the results that you get.
So it's your actions related to those thoughts, whether they be positive or negative, I suppose.
Right. And actions that follow, or lack of action that follows.
Right. What do you find is the biggest thing when you are coaching people individually or just in the seminars you do now? What do you find is the most popular thing or the most common thing that people are having trouble with, that they need to get out of the way in order for them to reach their goals or where they want to go?
God, that's a good one. I think there's so many things. I think fear of the unknown is a big one, because they don't know, or even worried so much of what other people might think of them. And it's what held me back for many years. So I can say that, always worried what other people would think. And people say, you're so confident on camera. And I think when I get in my zone, I'm being me, and I don't care. But yeah, it was a struggle as well, because there's always someone in your head. That it could be that person from your childhood. It could be your significant other. It could be your parent, your grandmother, your ex-boss that made you feel that you couldn't do anything right. I've had it all, and I haven't had it all, but the people that I've been around, I'm like, wow. I think it's more you in your head, not the people that potentially in your past, right? So if you think about it, if you're going somewhere, is what I tell people, you're looking at your target, wherever it is that you're headed, whatever goal you have, whatever thing you want to accomplish, you're looking forward. But if you're too busy looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to crash. And people are looking so much on what they haven't done, or the things that they did that they don't feel good about. But yes, they are in their own head. And I think it's all from fear of the unknown, or fear that it'll repeat itself because I tried that thing and I wasn't good enough, or I'm not ready yet. Right? It's that inner dialogue.
What about the fear of failure? Like, I really want to do this, but what if I fail? Right? That what if?
Definitely.
How do you help people overcome that? Because that's got to be a big one. Like, I want to do this, but if it doesn't work, then you're at the then what? So
I always say it's pretty straightforward. Like, what if you succeed? What if you succeed? Like, I get what if you fail, check, but what else do you got? Because if that's all you got and there's nothing else, what's going to manifest.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, Dave, when you think about what if I fail, no one has a fear of any kind unless they've thought about it first. And the way that you think about it is that you hold images in your mind. It sounds crazy for some people to swallow. Like, what do you mean we make images? Like, you do. It's a thought. And so you already know what failure in your mind looks like. I can tell you what failure looks like for me, and it's all lessons to be learned.
Yeah.
And even the ones that suck and hurt your soul. But everybody has a different picture of what that looks like. So only the person can answer, what does failure look like? You failing at this looks like what? Right? And so I always think that fear is false evidence that appears to be real. If you think about FEAR, it's
right.
false evidence appearing to be real. It's so true. It's a real thing. You wouldn't be afraid unless you have an illusion of what that is, right? So I always tell people, well, what does it look like you succeeding? And it's that perspective. It's a mind shift. Well, what do you mean? What does it look like? Well, I know what it looks like. Well, talk to me. If you can't tell me to a T in such a compelling way what it looks like you being successful, not what does success look like. A man on his yacht, if that's success to you, then we got to dig a little deeper.
Right.
Right? But what does that look like? Because when you're focused on the wrong, it's like a picture. You're making
Sure.
a picture of you not succeeding. What if you took a picture of you succeeding, made this one smaller and made this one bigger? It even evokes a certain chemical reaction in your brain so that you can start to.
It's easy to imagine what it's like when you fail, right? Well, I'm going to lose my house, my car, my bank account's going to go. I mean, that's all. It's because I think you're always
Tangible.
thinking financial, right? It's always financial stuff. You don't maybe think, but success maybe because you don't know. A lot of successes you don't know where you start a project. Like I'm sure when you started, you knew your goals where you wanted to be, but you're at a place where like, oh, this is great. I didn't know. And, you make the certain adjustments or maybe go to different roads that you really didn't think about because you're not really sure what success is. But you're right. I think you need to picture it harder than picturing failure.
And sometimes failure, I know you're saying tangible things, but sometimes failure is just like, they're going to laugh at me.
Yeah.
I won't get the approval. Or, they have something, and this is just human nature. You want to prove yourself to someone or something. You got to prove yourself. And so if you don't succeed, it's a deeper thing, and it's a pride thing sometimes for some people, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
So making things happen. Yeah, you told me a little bit about that. And so is that, would you call that your brand? Would you call that your tagline? Because Diana Pagano is your brand, right? So how is that? So that's your name. It's not like you go and you have like Direct Line Media, right? So that's, and I did that for a reason, my name instead of calling it, because a lot of video production companies, they call it, Bob's Video, whatever.
Gotcha.
So, so that's you every day. Is that something you go to work and you work and you promote your brand and then you come home and it's over? Or is it sort of, you wake up in the morning and it's an everyday sort of, that's how you live your life?
It's an everyday thing, Dave. Honestly, even before the tagline came about, it was always like, make things happen. Are we making things happen? Are you making things happen? What are you going to do today? I'm going to make things happen today. So it became a thing that I just lived with my whole entrepreneurial life. But then, as I told you, when I joined partnerships with my husband at his company, a family business, I decided, we did a slide, and all the managers had to put a slide on just results-driven data, numbers, whatever. And at the end, I said, I want something inspirational, something that they're going to, to lead the team accordingly. And so it's just a connotation. If you think mentally, if I told you, Dave, I want you to continue making things happen, you're already assuming that I'm saying you're already making things happen. Like, we're all making things happen, but how we make things happen is really the kicker of what's going to produce results. And so I had put a slide that says, let's continue to, and it says ... and then you hit the next slide and it says it's a sticky note that says make things happen. I'm telling you, that has been really the culture of the team now. Is make things happen, and it's just been a thing. But even at home, so I have 2 little boys now at home. They're 6, and my oldest, they're turned 8 in May. Yeah. And he'll tell me one day, I don't know, even when this first years ago, they were little. He was probably 5 at the time, and he says, Mommy, you don't talk about making things happen anymore. And I'm like, no, it just means that you went to school and, you're not home to see the things that I do here. But they're very enthralled with the Make Things Happen brand. And they know what it means, and they know that you have to live and breathe it. Even taking time to do yoga or to meditate. meditation for me is something that's a non-negotiable. Yoga is like, okay, 50-50 if we get it done this week, but meditation could happen anytime, anywhere. You don't have to be in a room with silent and laying on a bed. You can do it anywhere. And I actually do that with my kids. And I've showed them how to do guided meditation. And it's the cutest thing in the world. I would highly encourage anyone to, if you have kids, to bring them into your world. Because the crazy, it's not just make things happen. Let's win that golden ticket. It's like make things happen is self-care. It's being present in this moment. And we actually did this the other day with my husband and my two boys, and everybody took turns doing guided meditation, and they let it. So you can do meditation totally quiet without anything, no one talking. But I do guided meditation on my kids since they were honestly babies.
Wow. So it's really, it's a 24/7 kind of thing, but it's really not. It's just your lifestyle, right? It turns out to be just so making things happen could be, at home, making sure that you have a family dinner every night, or
Yes.
which you have that routine, which leads into work. So it's not just about go to work and kill it and come home and
Right. And
whatever and chill, yeah,
and not do anything. I mean, even chilling, you have to make things. How are you making things happen
Sure.
in your life? Even as a mom, as a working mom, people are so surprised at different businesses. They'll be like, "You actually make dinner 5 days a week out of the 7?" I'm like, "Yes." And you work and you do this. Like, it's impossible. I'm like, well, first off, I love cooking. And you think about it, it's all about loving what you do and how do you bring your passion into the things that matter, the things that you have to do. And I think that that's probably why I do it, is because I love cooking. Does it mean that one day I don't feel like cooking? Of course, there'll be times like that. We order out.
yeah. You started as a real estate agent. Is that something? Was that like a dream you wanted to do? And then I think you touched on this a little bit, but was there a moment? Like, tell me about that moment where you said, like, okay, it's time for me to transition out of real estate.
Yes.
And I want to help people. Like, was there like a definitive moment that you can remember when that occurred?
I do actually. Even before I started, you said that you went into real estate. I was working at PetSmart of corporate America in Phoenix, Arizona, and I knew that I had to provide for my kids, and I wanted to give them something more than what I had. And I thought real estate, there's no ceiling to what you can make, and so I went into that, and it was a roller coaster like nobody's business. Amazing highs and some lows for sure. But I think that whole journey and the highs that I had, Dave, I mean, there's times that I killed it. I made a lot of money. And then there's lows where I had no clue how I was going to pay my freaking mortgage. It was real. I had to really hustle and call every contact I had, everyone I've sold the house to. So, but out of literally survival mode. And I think that was the way that I kind of had my whole life, even as a child and then growing into my young adult life. I was living the same reality that my parents did. And so when I finally got to that moment of like really seeing how are we built as humans, and how is it that some people thrive and they have all this success and they can keep it that way and have consistency, because you can see people be successful but they're not fulfilled. So I don't mean that from the outside just because you have money. I don't mean the numbers of digits in your bank account, but that whole obsession, it was more because of me and looking myself in the mirror and saying, how do I change my life around? When I raised my standards, when I started to apply and really living with intention, I attracted, I'm telling you, this is not a coincidence, I attracted the things in my life that I wanted, and even the balance in my life that I craved so much, as, being that workaholic from the outside, but, wanting to be present with your kids at the same time. And even hitting the ground running when I moved to Connecticut in 2011 and got my real estate license. I did well in real estate. My broker at the time, who had just met me, like, I don't know where you come from. Like, you come in with all these listings and you're like, here, you enter them in the MLS. And it was a real story. It's a true story. And I don't say that to boast. I already knew. I've been in sales my whole life, so I knew how to sell. That wasn't a problem.
Right.
It was how was I able to really drive my reality versus being like Pac-Man, wanting to just get everything I could that came my way. Anyone that wanted to buy a house, I was all over it. Didn't matter how far I had to drive. So it's a great question that now you're asking. To answer your question, I wasn't getting the fulfillment that I wanted. It was so amazing to help first-time buyers. Like, that's a big dream to,
Sure.
And save your money for furniture. I'm going to get your closing costs paid for. I was that person. I would negotiate everything and some. I would shock people and forget the commission check. It was so gratifying, honest to God. I can't even describe it. The feeling that I would get knowing that I helped somebody. not even realize that they could make this happen. The impossible was almost an every day, every week thing for me in real estate. And I said, I need to teach others. I need to teach others how I did it. And so that's really that question where it was like, no offense to realtors, because it's a lot of freaking money. People don't give them credit. They think they make all this money and they just do a paper on a contract and that's it. That's not true. Yeah. There's times the real estate agents will be working for 9 months without a paycheck, with the same clients. So, but I said, here's the kitchen, here's the bedroom. Now write an offer. There was more. I wanted something more, and so that's where I came up with my course. And I said, I want the psychology behind the sale. And I knew agents that were struggling financially, and I knew agents that would look to me and say, how are you getting all this business in these areas of Connecticut that we can't penetrate? And I said, when you change this is when you're going to change that, right? You got to raise your standards. You got to do all these other things. And so that was a moment for me, is that I think my time selling real estate on a day-to-day was over. I wasn't getting the fulfillment. I mean, the money was good. Let me tell you, the money was amazing. When I did this 12-day course for a broker in Glastonbury, and for executive, what I got paid to teach a course was pennies compared to what I could have made with the same amount of time selling real estate. And that's the honest to God truth. But for me, the vision was much bigger than a paycheck.
Did you focus mostly when you started on helping real estate agents?
I did.
And sort of cut your teeth, I guess.
Yes.
Lack of a better term. Doing that way, and then just transition. So who are some of the groups you work with now? So who are have you had to name a group of people? Is it businesses and nonprofit organizations, real estate organizations still? Sort of who's your target audience?
It's a great question, because I feel that I'm kind of I have so many different, like with my background and there's a lot of diversity there with, whether it's a women's conference, I've done a speaking engagement for, I've done Salesforce, National Salesforce organization that it's sales. I mean, sales is in my blood. I can talk about it all day. It's also businesses that want to do like a kickoff meeting. It's kickoff sales conference. So conferences, a lot of businesses that want like a speaker, and depending on what the background is, whether it's real estate, it's interesting. My brand manager was just telling me, you have so many different things here that we talk about. Of course, I do my events as well, which is I actually have one coming up this Thursday about Ultimate Reset, and that was designed really for anyone, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a real estate agent, that business executive, making things happen in your business, and we just go and go, but we don't stop to do a reset, to get the clarity we want and what we need sometimes to then create the rest of our year, month, week in the most effective manner when we don't take care of us, right? So Ultimate Reset is all about you, not working in your business, but working on you. Because if you don't stop, just like your car, you fuel up your car, you have to get an oil change, you have to do a tune-up. It's really tuning yourself and doing a reset. So yeah, the audience is entrepreneurs. It could be working moms. It is an interesting question. Like, who is your typical client?
What about working moms is good, because that must be different than working fathers or men, right? Because they may be both executives in some firm doing the same job, but a mom is going to have a different life work balance, right? Than
sometimes, but you know what? You're right. Even dads. I have males as well that have joined my events. So this isn't like geared towards women. It's just a mixture, right? So I had even another conference I did from London, and it's a mixed audience, men and women, just trying to find that balance, that clarity. Sometimes it's just like they need to get some sort of motivation and inspiration on doing one thing, just one thing that I can do to get the most out of my week or my time. All that good stuff. So yes, it's not just geared towards women. It's anyone really. And even my Real Estate by Design will be coming out this summer again. So we're relaunching that. It's kind of crazy because that's where this started. And that's both men and women. So,
I know it's just talking to you now and at the event, it is not, you don't just focus on women. Do you find it, because there's a lot of talk that, there's an imbalance, right, in the workplace.
Yes.
Do you talk about that in any of your seminars or online courses and stuff like that? And how do mostly it's with women, right? So how do you talk to them about tackling that?
It's different, right? So, there's there's a lot there to unpack, because it's like what's happening with work? Are you saying like the work-life balance is one thing, but then there's also the inequality, like women are getting paid less than men.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm alluding to.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
that's the reality. And so I've had many events, speaking engagements geared towards women in corporate America, and the way that we need more women leaders.
Sure.
My husband will tell you women are make great leaders. But traditionally, yes, we have a lot of men and then this is not to take away from the men's and the skill set that they produce, but women are like 3 times less likely to get a promotion than a man is, than a male. And so it's crazy. And I look at statistics that just make me cringe. So yes, I just did one actually in earlier this year. It was a women's conference for diversity, and it was talking about, and I think it's, how do you build that confidence? How do you change the narrative that just because a man is likely to apply for a position that they are not skilled at, that they don't qualify on paper, but they figure it out and they're like, I'm going to apply anyways. And a woman's like, oh, I don't have those, so I'm not exactly the right fit potentially, right? And I talk a lot about that, and it's all, again, just on your self-confidence and knowing who you are and what you bring to the table. Negotiating with confidence. And it's a funny story. No one really believes me because maybe they do, maybe they don't. But when I joined my husband, for example, years ago at his company, I negotiated my own salary with my husband, and we share the same bank account.
Oh, wow.
And no one believes it. Like, wait, what? How is that possible? I said, because I know who I am, and I know what I can bring to the table and what I bring to the table. So I think it's like knowing who you are, right? As people say, you need to find yourself. You're right here. It's about knowing who you are and what you bring to the table, and even the things that you don't bring to the table. Not focusing on your weaknesses. We all have our strength and we all have our weaknesses, right? But how do you focus more on your strength? Because the weaknesses you can always, learn. You can always apply. Heck, I've even had outside resources help with the weaknesses that I have that I just can't do or don't want to do. And so just focusing on your strength and building your confidence. And I think that when you're able to see, this is what I bring to the table.
And those things don't all have to be work related, right? They could be maybe different organizations you belong to, maybe, right? Or would you factor that in? So let's say you belong to, you're on the board of something which is completely unrelated, but you could bring that into the negotiating table, right? And say, like, listen, this is what I do over here.
Right.
Oh,
absolutely.
This all add to your leadership strengths, right?
100%.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be the skill set of that job. What do you bring? Are you creative? Are you dependable? Are you, all those other things that can absolutely add to it.
Awesome. This is really good. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Of course.
What makes your the way you do things different? Let me back up a little bit and ask you, when you started your inspirational speaking and helping other people sort of figure out what's in their way, did you have any mentors or any? Because there's folks throughout the years that have been doing this. Or some, we're not going to name names, but a lot of people know they have events and they have online courses and all that. Is there anybody sort of you looked up to, or did you just start from scratch, be like, this is how I'm doing? Was there something? Let's start there with that question.
It's a great question. I didn't have a mentor growing up. My only mentor, honestly, and this might sound corny, has been God and my mom. My mom always, regardless of how crazy my childhood was and how reckless things might have felt and looked, she always said to me, with God, all things are possible. So I think prayer has been a big part of my life. And growing up, I always thought, if my mom says, with God, all things are possible, like, why did we live in such a way that, again, everyone has a story. It's not like I had the worst childhood, but it was just hard times. And so there was a book that I read. It was The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by John Grinder, I think it's, or John Gray. Anyways, and that didn't happen.
Put that in description if you think it'd be worth.
Absolutely. No, it's a great book. And that was the first introduction to Diana Pagano. Like, this was in my 20s. And that's where I was really started to just awaken a part of my brain. Like, wow, this is insane. What do you mean I can control my thoughts? Like, if this happens to me, who wouldn't feel this way? And, it just started to uncover that, oh my God, we really are in control. And so again, it's not, a mentor that I had. It was more me going into books and trying to figure that out. That was an amazing book that I would highly recommend. But I do believe in a coach. I do believe that everyone, regardless of who you are, Bill Gates has a coach, right? Later in life, I learned the power of neurolinguistic programming. So with Dr. Richard Bandler, and I went to London to take a course.
What is that?
So that is all the science behind our thoughts, and
Okay.
it's almost a technology of like everyone has a different strategy of how they do to get to point from A to Z, and how they do what they do. And I remember my husband told me about NLP, and he said, if you like did that, he never did a course, but he says you do this so naturally. If you learn the science behind why it works or why whatever, and so. That was a big part of just the awareness, and it's just studying the mind. Quantum physics. I was really obsessed with quantum physics and how we are all a ball of energy. We're just energy.
Sure.
Yes, I have hair. Yes, I have bones and whatever, but we are energy. And how do you, when you are aware of that we are, it's like a frequency that we're emitting. Whether I'm pissed off or I'm complaining or I'm happy and I just landed something, an opportunity, and you're emitting these waves into the universe. It might be a little, deep for some people, but I'm telling you, this is not a coincidence. Eventually it became, Dave, like, this is not a coincidence. This is real, and we're all doing it.
We always hear it's like, oh, when that person walks in, they light up the room, or right. So that's right. Maybe that's what that's about.
It is energy. It's like and even sales. Like I've been in sales my whole life. If I didn't transfer my emotions to you, I didn't do my job.
Okay.
So, anyways, it is. There's a lot to uncover. I even joke around, and I'll still say it now, that when I'm, a little old lady, I'll be like 90-year-old lady going to some conference to learn more about the brain and how this works, because we are barely scratching the surface.
That's awesome.
It's crazy.
I was on your website a little bit, and your about page, who was Diana kind of page, it mentioned your. It wasn't in detail, so I'm going to ask you. Like your growing up seems like you had a different growing up than the life you're living now.
Right.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So my parents were struggling entrepreneurs, and that's the best way to put it. They had their ups and downs. I remember Renowares where my parents worked, and it was like these pots and pans that they would go like door to door to people's homes. And I'm telling you, I still have pots from 40 years ago in my kitchen that are amazing. You can't even find these at Neiman Marcus, and they're better than any pots and pans you'll find at Neiman Marcus. But anyways, so my dad would always go to work like right after we got home from school. Like after 5 is when everybody gets home from work, so that's his time to do his sales presentation. And they had their moments. They would fight, or they would just be in their heads, and we were in a 2-bedroom apartment, 6 of us. I had 3 brothers and sisters and myself. So my brothers didn't even know what it was like to even have a room. They would slept in the living room. Again, and it's weird because even saying the story till this day, I feel like I am nobody to complain. We have it better than many countries and other people, even in our own town, living in poverty. So it could be worse, 100%. But, my upbringing, I think, was just all lessons to be learned. Even when I was little, just the inconsistency. We moved a lot. Like I'm from San Diego. I was born in Houston, but I moved to California and I lived in San Diego. And I'm telling you, Dave, like we moved every like 18 months. We were never in a place longer than a year or two, a year and a half.
Why is that? Just to find more work?
Being evicted because my parents couldn't afford the rent. They couldn't afford the rent. So I would move like neighborhoods. It wasn't even like we moved out of state, or out of, an hour away. It was just all in like San Diego, La Mesa, and then the Chula Vista area, Bonita area. So we moved around a lot. Or maybe they did well. So we finally moved into one time, I think we were even at a 1-bedroom when we first moved to San Diego. But either way, it was just hard times. I was 16 when 14 when my father got diagnosed with cancer. Oh my God. And I ended up getting a job at I still remember the place, Diversified Copier Products in San Diego. And I remember applying for a job, and I lied saying that I was 18, but I really wasn't, because I think that's the age you had to have. And so my first paycheck, I still remember that I was going to go to Disneyland, and it was a pretty good paycheck. And I ended up giving pretty much everything to my dad to pay the electric bill. And I say this story because I'm telling you that this is a big reason why I am who I am, why I've had such a drive that failure just wasn't an option. I already know what that was. That's where I came from. Like, I already know what that felt like. getting a no wasn't even an option for me. And so people might see, oh, you're so successful, you're so good in sales, everything I did. And it was truly the drive that I don't know if I was born with it, but I had the drive because I knew that there had to be something better out there. And how my parents didn't figure it out. It wasn't until my 30s that I realized, oh my gosh, this is why I did, and my life turned out the way that it did, because of knowing what that was, and me even living the same cycle, being in an abusive relationship right after my dad wasn't abusive with my mom, but it was the same cycle that I was kind of living. And I had the courage to break out of that situation when I was 25 and had 2 little kids.
Wow. So it was just your drive comes from, I've been there, and there's better things out there.
Yeah.
And well, that's great. What about? I mean, so they're entrepreneurs. Did it was ever talked about like your father getting a full-time job, like being an employee somewhere? And why wasn't that? I'm just curious. Why wasn't that discussed instead of? I mean, was it something he really loved to go door-to-door salesman, or?
Yeah,
or
it was. I think it was just. I think getting. They. It's almost like they're good in sales and they have this natural talent. You can't rely on that. You can be the best salesperson there is with the most, whether you call it natural talent or whatever, but then you have person B that doesn't have natural talent. That this person's a better salesperson than person B, but person B has consistency, has a discipline, right? They're going to be successful 10 times more than the person with natural talent. That's just when times are good, I'm going to go do this, but when it's they weren't emotionally stable.
Okay.
And I say that, and I talked to my mom about it. It's in my book that's going to come out, but, and she's giving me her blessing because it's a reality. But I think that's where, how do you show up even when things are bad, even when things aren't so good? Because he was out there doing it. But think about it. If I'm not in a good state and I'm going to go door to door and try to sell you on some amazing product, the product was amazing. How good am I going to do? So he was doing but he wasn't bringing the results he wanted because he was not in a good state.
That's hard. That's a really good point you bring up, because you may be really good at what you do, and when you're succeeding, right? When you're making those sales and doing the work and the money's coming in, everybody says, "Oh, this guy's great," and you really connect with people because you're in a good spot. But when you have a slow period, however long that may be, and the checks sort of slow down, and you're not closing the sales that you think you should be closing, right? How do you overcome that to get back? Because there are ups and downs in every business, right? It's like this.
Right.
So how do you work through those down parts, not to emit that bad energy on your potential customer or client?
Right. And I think it's you can change your state in a snap of a finger. It can take a minute, literally, for you to change the channel, because you're in a bad channel. I always say that if you're whether you're fearful, whether you're mad, you're just on a bad channel. Just get out of the channel, right? It's so simplistic, but people don't do it. Dave, they don't do it. They're too busy getting pissed off or getting upset or seeing a mountain out of a molehill, making it a bigger problem than it actually is. And then it becomes a big problem because you focus so much on the problem. How much have you focused on a solution? How much did you focus on how, even just the questions that you ask yourself, which we're all doing it, the questions you ask yourself will be a game changer you have to first influence yourself. So if I sit here and say, this sucks, no wonder it's happening, whatever, poor me, versus how do I change this around? How? Yeah. How do I change this around? Remember the quantum physics I said before. You're already sending signals, you're opening up the pathways of possibilities. So how much time are you spending in that? And it's hard when things are great, things are going your way. When things are going your way, it's easy to attract more things that are going your way. It's when it's tough. It's when the storm is there. That's what really, to me, I think really speaks loud of how you are looking at your challenges. If you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, listen, I've interviewed some people too. Even when early on in my brand, I was so obsessed with how did you do it? And I always said this to myself, Dave. I said, what has helped me is in any problem, the worst problem I had, any one of them, should make your pick, I've had many, is not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. If you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you crumble. Yeah. You have to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that this is a rough patch, but it's going to be over. And there is a better possibility out there for you. It sounds really, again, simplistic, but you're so caught up in the storm,
Sure.
you need to get out of that.
This too shall pass, right?
This too shall pass.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
No, that's a big one, because it happens. And there's a moment. You brought up the pandemic a while ago.
Yes.
I think that hurt a lot of people. And other people, they saw it as an opportunity.
Of course.
So it's a little bit of a mindset. There's a point where you start to work too much, right? I think you brought up also sort of working on your business and not in your business. And you touched on that. And I think that's really big, especially for what I do as well.
Yes.
If you want to grow, and even if you're still, one person or a couple of people, you need to really focus on your business and not so much you just doing all that work. And I think, personally, that's hard to make that first step. So like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to shoot this video. I'm going to hire some other guy to shoot it and hope he does a good job. But once you go there and then you send, no matter whatever it is, I think that's a huge first step to say like, okay, yeah, no, I can direct this person or manage this person to create a product for my client that they're going to be happy with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes we want to take everything on because no one's going to do it the way that we're going to do it. But
Yeah.
once you release that, it's liberating because now you can focus on the bigger things.
Yeah.
And I remember even saying like, if I could just have one person to do this, or I can't, and it started to change that narrative. It started to change that language. Like when I have a team, when I have this, and I'm already putting it out there, I'm already saying that this is what I'm going to have. It's powerful versus living in doubt and limitation and saying, well, I'm going to have to because my sales aren't coming in and this and that. It's like you almost have to plan as if it's already here.
Yeah. No.
To some degree, yes, you got to make sure you're making the right move. I'm not saying plan as if and hire your whole team.
Sure.
Of course not.
Yeah. But it's also good because these other people bring more things to the table that you may not have seen. So
exactly.
I think that's
100%. If you look at who else could do this? Who else could do this versus me? It's a game changer for sure. I think it takes a whole village to make my life what it is today, business and professionally and personally.
Yeah.
It takes a village. And people might say, oh, I didn't have that help when I was, a mom like you, a working mom. And I'm like, you're a better woman than me because it takes a village truly to perform at the level that I want to perform in. And that's whoever puts their meter. You have your own meter, what level you want to perform at. And for me, it's when I get home, I want to be present with my kids. And I do have help at home. And I think that I could afford it, but I also think it's peace of mind for me too, because do I want to be doing the things that I have to do, or do I rather have someone help me and support me at home so that I can be present with my kids and talk about what they learned today at school? And sometimes I even involve them with me in the kitchen. You make it work, it doesn't mean that people think that I'm so positive and I'm happy-go-lucky all the time. That is so not true.
Sure.
That is so not true. I have my moments too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's being human, right?
That's being human.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit. You mentioned a book.
Yes.
What's that all about? That's exciting. I didn't know that was happening. Tell us about that book. When's it coming out? Sort of.
Oh my goodness,
how
Dave.
did that materialize? All that.
It's been a big baby of mine for years, but more seriously, it's been probably a good year coming now. It's actually going through the stages of publishing or self-publishing right now. That's kind of where I'm at. I do have an ebook, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life, that I do give away for free for anyone that attends my events. Like I said, this Thursday is Ultimate Reset, which if someone can't watch it, because I know I've had some people reach out to my brand manager and even to myself that I don't want to miss it, but I'm going to be somewhere or whatever.
Sure.
So it's going to be recorded and they get a link for, I think, 30 days. So people do get Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life ebook. And this book is I can't release the title yet, but I will soon.
Awesome.
It's been, it's all, I always think about what do I want a reader or my audience. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever I'm doing, I always think about the audience. And I always think about what is it that I want the outcome to be. And for this book, for me, it was more, how do we go take the reader through the story of what I went through, where I was, and how I came out of that, and how I changed my life around, and they can too.
Awesome. What's the future for Make It Happen and Diana Pagano?
Make Things Happen, Diana Pagano. Well, the future is we're going to have
Thank you.
live event. It's okay. We're going to have a live event called Make Things Happen Hartford, Make Things Happen San Diego, make things happen. London.
Wow.
We're coming out of this pandemic. We're seeing events happening. So the future is to really inspire millions of people worldwide in different languages, to be honest with you.
Wow. How's that going to work? Different languages?
So, we have a translation company. So I kind of have a little insider, thing now with a language company. But, we do it for clients.
Yeah.
So, again, it's about thinking bigger.
Yeah.
Like if I can impact one person in the whole crowd, I've done my job. And
Sure.
it's so fulfilling that I can't even describe it. And I know because I was that person struggling and I was that person wanting answers. And if I can sum it up for them and have a somewhat, I don't want to say shortcut, life isn't a shortcut, but if you can change a few things so that they don't have to go into this loop and make it shorter for someone that says, I got it. It's just adding more to their toolkit. I mean, there's a lot of motivational speakers out there. There's a lot of great, self-help gurus. I feel like I'm just another flavor in the 31 flavors of ice cream because it's like how many times maybe, Dave, you heard someone speak, but it didn't resonate with you. But then you hear another person speak and said the same thing in a different way, maybe a different experience that they went through, and it just resonates a little differently, right? I think that that's the beauty of this industry is that anyone can make an impact. Like it doesn't matter if you're 11 years old or you're 90 years old, you can make an impact to help inspire somebody based on something that you went through.
Yeah, I like you say that because you hear something from some person and you don't shrug it off, but you're like, okay, but then you hear it maybe because maybe a word was different or the delivery was different, or maybe you just connect with that person on a different level.
Absolutely.
And then you take that more to heart and you're like, oh no, now or maybe you really didn't understand it the first time because of whatever. So now it was the same idea. So that's great. I'm glad you're helping people get ahead and do what they need to do. Is anything else you want to tell us that's coming up? You talked about some events. What about if somebody want to reach out and get a hold of you to either look at one of your webinars or book you for an engagement? Sure.
You can go to dianapagano.com to the events page. I think that it might even be on my homepage. The Ultimate Reset is coming up this Thursday. It's a great masterclass, if I could say. It's a masterclass, 2.5 hours. And it's really time for you. Like I said before, you don't want to work in your business 24/7, more so on your business. This is for you. This is to work on you, not just you, doing. And you want to be there for everything and everyone, and no one can do it but me. And that could go on, and you might be okay doing that. But there's a breaking point. Everybody has them. I know that I do. And I have to stop and do a reset. I have to stop and get the clarity of what is it. Yes, I can tell you where I'm going to be in 6 months. I can tell you where I want to be in the next 12 months. But this is a great opportunity to really unlayer that in a little bit and dig deeper so that you can create the life that you want. It's an amazing class. We had some great reviews, great turnout actually. So this is amazing. And then it'll be recorded for the first time ever because I've never ever offered it as a recording for people that may not be able to attend right away on this day. So yeah.
All right. I'll put all that info in the description. Awesome. Thank you again for coming out. We're going to wrap it up, and I'd love to have you back and talk more about what's going on with you and your brand and how you're
sounds great. I would love
helping people get ahead with what they want to get ahead with.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Dave.
Absolutely. All right. Take it easy, everybody.